guys, it's your girl Corporate Carolyn, and even though you can tell it's nighttime, I still have some work that I need to do, but that's okay. I hung out with my husband, had a lovely dinner, and we were having like a little date, night or afternoon. And of course that old hateful NCAA basketball has come on. I hate sports, but just to be married successfully, you don't have to like everything the other person likes. And so I've sent my husband back down to the basement so I could have this level and do a video or two. And I did one talking about my favorite protective styles that I hope to post before or after this. I don't know. I'm constantly making videos, and so I don't even know when I'll post them, but I will post it at some point for those of you who want to know. But what I'm talking about right now, before I get back to my document, is that someone asked me, how did I heal from past traumas before I met my husband? If any of you have watched the series that I started, about how I found my dream husband, and I want to let y'all know that was like back in 1987. So yeah, I'm old. That's okay. But I've been married. It'll be 33 years in October, if you can believe that. And we've raised two wonderful sons who are going to be 30 and 28 in November. I wanted babies for Christmas. I'm a planner. Yes, I'm that person. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about was the fact that I didn't heal from my past traumas before I met him. I've been healing over the course of the 30 plus years that we've been together. And in case anybody's wondered what kind of traumas, because a lot of times people look at like surface level, because you usually see me laughing and joking and smiling. I'm talking about the Corporate Carolyn thing. And, yes, I'm happily married, got beautiful kids, and I love the clothes and stuff too. But my life was very hard. I grew up, in a single parent home. My mother left my father at 4 because he was kicking her butt. I mean, he was beating, he was cheating, he was drinking, he was in jail, didn't want to work. He lived less than 10 miles from us, but yet I never saw him other than maybe 5 or 7 times in between the ages of maybe 5 and 15 that I can recall. And I was very embarrassed because people, and in the South they call me Callan. My name is not Carolyn, it's Callan. And I had uncles and people asking me, Callan, when the last time you seen your old daddy? And I'm just like, really? And I was like embarrassed because they were asking me in front of my other cousins who might have had their fathers in their lives. So I was just mortified. I remember visiting my dad in jail, and that he was in jail once because he shot my mother's boyfriend. And I remember trying to pull him off of my mom when I was 4 because they were fighting and he was beating her up, and I'm trying to pull him off and he tries to get me away, and there's a little scar over my eye where his ring hit me in the eye, and they wound up having to take me to the hospital and stuff. And so this was the story, or this, the story of my life. And I grew up in the projects, didn't have any brothers and sisters. My mom was working all the time, so I was stuck in the house, which is probably how I wound up being like this, because I was reading all the time, couldn't go out, can't fight, can run really fast though. And my mom would put those little lace socks on, so just all sorts of things that would isolate me from being normal. And then God in his infinite wisdom gave me this little voice, living in the projects, in the South. And so people already think I'm a weirdo because I love to read, I love to write, and I'm relatively smart. Some people think so anyway. And so it just made for not a very good childhood. So stuck in the house, drinking, Kool-Aid, never drinking water like I do now, which is also why I'm slimmer at 58 than I was at 18. Drinking iced tea, the sweet tea and everything, just sitting around eating because I'm so bored. I was a little chubby chunker, poor, wearing my mom's clothes, never had much butt to speak of, so the people just were really on me. It was horrible. And I was like, Lord, one day I'm going to be slim and I'm going to have beautiful clothes, which is probably why I have an obsession about being dressed up all the time. As I'm calling myself Corporate Carolyn, those people that I work with day to day, they don't want to see me. They never see me. But this is how I'm sitting in my house working when no one else cares. I just love to dress up. And the Lord has blessed me with all of those things. So I'm very, very happy. But there were other things that happened in my childhood where I was sexually molested at 8. And that went on for some time until miraculously that person stopped living with me and my mom. So you guys be careful about the men that you bring in your house, and better still, don't let anybody live in your house that you're not married to and that didn't help you buy said house. That would be a good way to start. But the whole molestation thing, my mom and I weren't close, didn't have a good relationship, no relationship with my dad, no siblings, lonely, chubby, and I notice in the videos where I talk about my hair's longer and healthier at 58 than it was at 18. It's the truth. So, my hair didn't look good. I wore grandma glasses, as even my husband calls them. And, so life, we didn't have a car. We were poor. It was just bad. It was bad. I just could not wait to get out of there. In fact, I left Augusta 3 days after I graduated from Clemson, and I've lived where I live now for over 30 years. And so in essence, I kind of ran away from home because I was really sad. And that whole molestation thing, I just kind of put it in a box in the back of my mind and just didn't even deal with it. I did tell my husband because obviously, it can affect the way that you think about things, and you need to be transparent about that kind of stuff because some things might take me back and make me remember that kind of stuff. And I've had to explain those things to him. And so, but it's something that I grew, out of, or work with the Lord to heal from. But the one thing that all of that stuff that I just told you about in a nutshell created was distrust, for men especially. And it made me feel like, I have to look out for number one. I can't trust anybody aside from God. No one else has my back. So when I met my husband, because I'm like a punctual person, like if you say you're going to be here at 7:30 and you get here at like 7:37 or 7:47, I'm just like, I thought you said you were going to be here at 7:15 and it's 7:30. And he's like, oh, I got held up, I got tied up, and blah, 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 blah. And that used to bother me. And that used to be a really big issue. And I would ask a whole bunch of questions. Well, if you said it's this, then why is it that? And what about this? And what about that? That worked really well from a parenting standpoint with my sons. You could easily, dissect a story and find out if people are telling the truth or lying. But for a grown man who hadn't done anything wrong that I knew of or anything, he got tired of those questions after a while, and the third degree all the time. And he finally told me, after about maybe a year or two of us, hanging out, pseudo dating and being friends at first, and after a while, when we started getting more serious, he said, you're going to wind up alone if you don't wind up trusting someone. And I was like, what? And he meant that, and he went away. And in fact, he also broke up with me at one point because I wanted him to do something, and I was trying to manipulate him. And I was like, I don't know, I wasn't insulting, but I was just being very aggressive and pushy and trying to be manipulative without being mature and saying, well, I really want this or that. But, instead I was acting kind of childish. And he broke up with your girl. And he said, you're not mature enough to have the kind of relationship that I want. And then that was it. He said, we can be friends, but we can't date anymore. And I'm just like, what? And then in my mind, I'm like, I wrote my letter. You're the one. We're supposed to get married. But he let me know in no certain terms. And that's what I tell my sons. I'm like, if someone's not nice to you in the beginning, this is as good as they're going to get. So you need to break up with them and maybe just walk away. that will get a person's attention like that. Him breaking up with me got my attention just immediately. And I said, okay, check. I need to learn to trust more. Unless he shows me reason not to trust him, I need to trust him. And so that's kind of how that solidified my ability to be able to trust a man, because he proved to no end that if anybody had my back, he did. And when I needed someone to help me, he was there. He was the only person that I really ever had in my corner and that I could really trust. And so I had to put all of that dysfunction behind me and just take a leap and just jump out there. And I think that's what a lot of people who've been hurt are scared to do. You're scared to be vulnerable because you've been hurt before and you've seen people lie. In fact, I got dogged out before him with a guy with a jerry curl. And so I was really distrustful. First, you're going to be molested, then you have a father that's nowhere in the picture. And I used to experience such embarrassment as a kid. I mean, like my father, I told you he lived less than 10 miles from us. He didn't even know what college I went to. And someone was making a joke saying, oh, I saw your old daddy. I don't know why he couldn't just be my daddy, but my old daddy. And they said he was talking about how he had bought you a typewriter because you were at Bethune-Cookman. And I had to sit and listen to this. I wasn't at Bethune-Cookman. I never went to Bethune-Cookman. I was at Clemson. But he didn't even know what college I went to. I mean, imagine how embarrassing that was. And also people saying, oh, I heard your dad, got beaten up because he was drunk. He stole somebody's liquor. I heard he was, in jail. And so it made me never want to go back to Augusta. And it made me just feel so hard inside. And it made me not feel vulnerable. But I had gone to God and I asked him for someone, and then God gave me someone that checked all the boxes that I had. So it was really up to me. Are you going to trust him or what? You asked God for him, you got it. He's already told you he's not going to put up with your foolishness. He's already broken up with you but one time. You better get it together and act right. And so that's what I started doing. But that little hurt was still there. And it's funny that, we wound up getting married. And we wound up having children. And what I told my boys is that they were God's delightful distractions to me, because it caused me not to think about all those little things that I had kind of put off to the side in the box. They were just these wonderful gifts. And so I spent over 20 years just focused on them and, and the wonderful family that we were building that I always dreamt of having, because like I said, no brothers, no sisters, no father, who I never received a birthday card from my father. I don't think I've ever spent a birthday with him. I never saw him on any holidays, no graduations, no fatherly advice, none of that stuff. My mom and I weren't close. I think it could be related to the fact that maybe I looked like my father. I looked like my grandmother who didn't like her. But we were never close. And in fact, it just never felt like that warm, cozy, encouraging mother role that you had. There was something there preventing us from being close. So I felt very isolated, and my heart was a little hard. But as soon as I met my husband and he showered me with all this love, and it's just so sweet, and then I have these beautiful boys and I had the family that I wanted, and so it kind of melted all of those hard issues that I had. And it didn't make it easy for me to interact with other people, but that little inner nuclear family that we had going, I was good. But then it's funny that you mentioned, how did I heal from that? The boys left, and now we're here with this empty nest. And then all of a sudden, especially like around 40, that was the first time I mentioned to my mom about her live-in boyfriend molesting me. And I don't know if she fully believed it, because she was telling me how she never left me alone with him at the house. That's not true. It did. And so I can see how that's a hard thing for you to hear. And so we haven't really worked all the kinks out related to that. But I started to process it at 40. And I'm sad to say that was 18 years ago because I'm 58. But so I've been working through that. And it's funny, I was never angry at the molester. I was more angry at the people who didn't protect me, at the people who, even when I told them, didn't really seem to be protective or to really like say, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's more my husband that's so sorry that that happened to me. And so like I've just been working with the Lord. And one of the things that I do sitting here at this table is I journal. And so like during my devotion times, the things that are hard for me, you see that? That's probably about tens of thousands of dollars of therapy. I have books like these. It started with War Room, the movie, when I think my youngest son went to college. And I was like filling out sheets and putting them on the wall by my treadmill. And then I kind of graduated into journaling my devotion. So like I'll do my devotion, and this is a great book. My son gave it to me after I started talking, my youngest one, after I kind of shared with him that you guys know me as your mom, but you don't know me as a woman, that has issues and things that they're dealing with. And so I think shortly thereafter this, he gave me this book. I love Joyce Meyer. She's like my mother in Christ, because she was sexually molested by her father. Hers was a lot more horrific than mine was. But when you've been violated as a child, it really does. I'm a very distrustful person. Fortunately, my husband has earned my trust. But most people, if their stories don't add up, my mind in the back, they lying, to use my mother's phrase, not they are lying, but they lying, where you drop the R. So it's a process. I haven't fully healed. And if I found a great therapist, I would probably go to someone and talk about it. But for right now, I've been opening up to my husband more, talking about stuff, especially as we, develop a new dynamic with an empty nest, because believe me, it's definitely different. Once those kids go away, you're relearning each other, you're, figuring out a new dance or whatever, and you're reverting back to the friendship that you had before the children came into the picture. But if you're healing from something and you're trying to take care of it before you meet your Mr. Right, this is definitely a book that I would recommend. It's a 90-day devotional, and I just started over again because it's really helped me. And journaling, like I talk to God about things that hurt me, and things that I might not be quite all right about, because and that's probably why that whole corporate Carolyn persona has been so helpful, because it's given me a healthy thing to focus on now that the kids are gone. And but you definitely have to work through stuff, and it's a process. And just because you don't work it all out before you meet your Mr. Right, it doesn't mean that that you can't work it out during and after the process. I just would recommend that that you definitely share with that person as you're being vulnerable and taking a leap. And because nobody's perfect, everybody brings some sort of baggage. But the only thing that I will caution you, and I find myself almost wanting to cry and feeling a little emotional, like you say these things, like they're a joke. And like my youngest son asked me once, like, well, what happened to your dad's ashes? Because I had to pay for his cremation. Because the funny thing, and it's not funny, but it's the truth, like what happened? I think someone wound up beating him up or something, and he wound up being found dead, and he was like a John Doe, and they were looking for his next of kin, and they couldn't find me, and they wound up finding me, or at least finding my mom. Someone mentioned it to her, and she was saying, Callan, you can't repay evil for evil, so you need to bury him. And so because they were going to just put him in like some sort of pine box or something, and so I paid for his cremation. And the mortician may have asked me what did I want to do with the ashes. I can't remember, but my son said, what did you do with his ashes? And I'm like, I don't know. And I started laughing. And so there is probably something wrong with me, And I like to watch a lot of things like Equalizer, where there's violence, and I like to see bad people get it. And I think that has some, if I spoke with a therapist, they would probably say that's probably because you haven't seen people get what they deserve. A lot of times who've done bad things, you just see them, get away with it and go on about their lives. And so, like I said, I'm talking to the Lord, and I'm talking to my husband, and he knows that I'm still working through some things, and that eventually I may find myself in therapy. So while you're looking for your Mr. Right, even if you don't work out all the kinks, be transparent, be vulnerable. Don't assume that just because people have hurt you in the past that they are going to hurt you in the future. And then also don't try to make that person pay for things that happen to you. Don't just say, well, all men are, because all men are not. Everyone's not out to get you. Everyone's not going to hurt you. You really have to take a chance on love. And like I said, be vulnerable, be open to new things. And then, you can start the process of your healing. But if you're still trying to heal, this has been one of the best things that has really helped me. So you could probably find it online. And I'm sorry I talked so long, but I didn't expect to get a little emotional and off target. And also, I would caution you, just don't assume that anybody has it all together, because everybody struggles with something and everybody has some trauma. And just because you had trauma doesn't mean that you can't have a great life, because I'm so glad that I trusted God. And people told me I couldn't go to college, that I needed to, just go ahead and like go to a trade school or something, because they said you guys ain't got no money. That's what they said. You need to drop out of school. But the Lord helped me, and that's it. That's the only person who helped me. No one else paid for my college. It was me with the Lord's help. And so you can have a great life regardless of what happened during your childhood. It's not anything that defines you. You define you. And the Lord, my faith has really, really strengthened me and kept me from not thinking less of myself because of what happened in the past, and realizing that that those bad things didn't define me, and people not liking me and laughing at me because of my clothes or body or the way that I talk. The Lord allowed all of those things to work together for my good, and none of that dysfunction touched my children. So just because you grew up with dysfunction or things that were wrong, it doesn't mean that you can't raise wonderful human beings, and that you can't have a happy, successful marriage, and that you can't accomplish everything that you want to accomplish, even when you still need to heal. So hopefully that answered the question, even though it was really long-winded, so I apologize. But if you have other questions, I'll try to answer it in a more timely manner. But until the next video, I hope you guys are blessed. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.